I think the really shocking thing is that the way that companies get breached, the way that people get in the door really hasn't fundamentally changed in the 25 years I've been doing this.
How did your experience as a hacker make you the cyber expert you are today?
So it's interesting because I think in one way it gave me an attention to detail as to what to look for, what causes breaches. But somewhat weirdly, I think what it influenced the most is the defensive mindset, because back then you built a computer, you loaded your operating system, and then you went on like internet relay chat in a chat room full of hackers. We didn't have broadband. We didn't have home routers. Your computer was directly connected to the internet. There were no firewalls yet. If you hadn't secured it, locked it down, tightened it, patched everything, updated everything, hard drives still made noise back then. And if you hadn't done that, about 30 seconds after joining that chat room, it started making a lot of noise and everything just started shutting down and you'd have to reinstall Windows from floppies. So weirdly, that's probably what stuck with me the most, is just making absolutely sure that things are locked down properly. And there was kind of a gap there where I actually entered more the working kind of company, business, enterprise environment. And how do you do that at scale? And that whole like actually running a business gets in the way thing. And that there was a gap there. And that's when I kind of, but some of the principles held, and I kind of came full circle. And now it's more about just leadership and holistic approaches and really getting to the root causes and business process, company culture. And I don't mean security awareness, I mean real culture, to help do that same thing, have that consistent level of assurance, but also things like efficiency and agility, which actually help the business on a holistic level.
And what is the most pressing cyber threat to UK businesses?
Everyone will say ransomware, but ransomware is basically a payload. It's basically a way of monetizing a breach. And I think the really shocking thing is that the way that companies get breached, the way that people get in the door really hasn't fundamentally changed in the 25 years I've been doing this. People are still not building systems properly. They're still not maintaining them properly. They're still not doing asset inventory. They're not patching properly. They have poor processes. They have a lack of consistency in processes. And that's what you're basically living in a house with 1,000 doors and 1,000 windows, and some of them are constantly being left open. And that's how people get in and then set off things like ransomware and that kind of thing. So for small businesses, it's quite tricky, but for large businesses and organizations, it's definitely get a holistic and business aligned security approach. That's truly proactive and, in line with the business, in line with how things actually work, so that you come up with effective, sustainable ways of doing things rather than the security status quo, which is just buy another tool.
In business, what is the weakest link that can put your information security at risk?
Everyone says people. I think people are the first link, but they're also your first line of defense. It's, in a word, sloppiness, lack of maturity, lack of processes, lack of integration, not having that full holistic view of your environment, but also your IT and your security functions not understanding the business processes themselves, not knowing what there is to protect. Those are the real issues, because you hear a lot about, oh, Dave from marketing clicked an email and that's how everything turned to poo-poo. But then they don't forget, okay, he clicked on an email. So an attacker had Dave's level of access on his laptop. So how did they get then admin? Because you hadn't configured that laptop properly. And how did they get through your VPN? And how did they get through your firewall? Because you hadn't updated the firmware, you hadn't changed the default password. And then how did they run through wildfire, like through your data center? Well, because you had poor system administration techniques and you had a bunch of unpatched servers. But let's blame it all on Dave from marketing instead of the security and IT teams who didn't do their jobs. So, yeah, holistic approach.
Do you believe we take cybersecurity seriously enough, and to what extent can such crimes impact our everyday lives?
I don't think we take them seriously enough. Well, it's funny. I think there's menial things that we take far too seriously. Like, I'm really not concerned about losing my credit card. I'll file a claim. I'll get my money back. I'll get a new car. It'll cost me £5 tops. Not bothered. Other things, pretty significant. I work for Scoutbee. We work in supply chain discovery and management. And if you are a big international business and your suppliers go offline, or your manufacturing production goes offline for 3 weeks, 3 months in some cases, pretty significant. Hospitals going offline, traffic management systems going offline. There's a lot of ways things can get quite ugly. The number of ways that is possible is increasing very quickly. And the biggest problem with this is it's not about pumping more money into security and buying more tools, which is what the security industry would love you to do. It's the whole approach is flawed. We are not fundamentally making things secure. We are trying to bolt on security at the end in a way that just will never be a correct fit and is simply too expensive to do completely. And that's why, as we keep digitizing things and keep making all these smart online systems, that just becomes things that people can exploit. And we simply do not have the resource to constantly 24/7 monitor this stuff and try to detect and respond, which fails 90% of the time anyway. So need to start doing stuff right from the beginning.